On the afternoon of April 22nd, 2023, a 49-year-old father of three named Carl O'Keefe crawled through a cave system in Cumbria, England. But Carl wasn't remotely worried, because he knew this was easily the safest cave system he had ever explored. In fact, this place was so safe that often people showed up with their kids and let them run around freely with no fear they were going to get hurt. And so Carl continued crawling through this tunnel, and eventually he reached this T intersection. He doesn't really know where he's going, so he decides, okay, I'll just go right. And so he begins going down this tunnel, which closely resembled the tunnel he had just came from. But as he was crawling along, he started to feel like the walls around him were kind of shrinking, and it was getting harder and harder to push his body through this tunnel. And then finally, when it felt like it was so tight around him and it was getting so claustrophobic that maybe he should just turn around, he reached a dead end. And so he thought, okay, I'll just turn around and go back the way I came and maybe explore the left side. And he begins doing this U-turn, but he was too physically big to get his lower half to complete the U-turn. And so he was effectively wedged in this U-shaped position. He couldn't do anything, he was just stuck. But Carl didn't panic, because he knows this is a safe place. This is not a big deal. Nobody gets hurt in these cave systems. And so he decides, okay, let's reset. I'll pull my shoulders and my upper body back and I'll reset facing the dead end. I'll basically go back to exactly the position I was just in. Except when he tried pulling his upper body and his head and his shoulders back to where he was facing the dead end, he realized he was also stuck going in that direction, and he just started screaming out for help. Immediately, some of the staff who heard Carl yelling out made their way into this tunnel system and actually saw Carl in this U-shape, totally wedged. The staff backed out and they called the fire department. Fire department, they came out and they too could not get Carl out. It would take an agonizing 4 hours to finally free him. The instant Carl was out of the tunnel, he was rushed to the nearest hospital and admitted to the intensive care unit. And there, they would discover he had suffered all these extensive crush injuries from being in that position for so long. He was in horrible shape, and despite heroic efforts by medical staff to try to save Carl, ultimately, he would die 8 days later from those injuries. And his death would become massive news, because it really seemed impossible that somebody could die in that cave system, because it was meant to be so safe. This cave system was not like an underground cave system. This was a cave system for kids. It was a kids' play place. All the tunnels and the cave itself was made out of plastic so kids could crawl and explore. And so Carl had gone to a birthday party for one of his kids' friends. He went right in there with his kids and was crawling all around and goofing around with the kids until, unfortunately, he got stuck.